Hello, everyone. It's Ellen, and I am so excited to be here with our special guest today. But before I introduce her, part of our mission here at Wake Up, Rise Up, Speak Up is awareness, education, and impact. And most of you know I'm completely the most unaware human in the world when it comes to this. And I learned a little bit about human and sex trafficking, and I went, there's no way that this happens. I mean, I can't even believe that I have been so blind. This has been right in front of my face, and I've never seen it. So we are going to start a podcast series where we are interviewing survivors or family members of survivors so that y'all know this is real, this is happening, and it's happening right in front of our faces to normal people, to normal families, and it can happen to you as well. And we need to protect our children. We need to save our children. So without further ado, this is Amie Ellis. And she's part of our group. And I'm telling you, this lady is a fireball. We've spent about a half an hour. I'm listening to her story. I'm like, oh my gosh. So Amie has 7 children, 7 of them, ranging from 26 to 17. And when her daughter was 17 years old, which was about 4 years ago, she was trafficked. And a lot of parents can probably identify with this story. You know, teenagers go through all sorts of things and all sorts of emotions. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Amie, to share your story. And the outcome that I want from this is for y'all to hear this and know that it can happen. It does happen. It does happen. And we need to talk to our kids. We need to protect our children. They need to understand that these things happen. And then we're going to talk about kind of the repercussions after the fact. And then some of the good and fun things that she's doing. So Amie, share your story, please.
Okay, you guys, like Ellen said, my name is Amie Ellis. I do have 7 children. I'm married to an amazing man. He's a hilarious comedian guy. And so I also own a small gym. I own a small business here in Utah. And I always like to start by just saying I'm just a normal person. There's nothing different about our family. We were just going about life, busy, running businesses, taking care of kids. Our home was always filled with lots of kids and laughter and food and, you know, all the things that teenagers come with. And I was a lot like you, Ellen. I just live in this bubble where I just thought life was amazing and going about my business, and I was really happy. And I didn't realize that this was a thing in the United States. I would hear stories outside of the country, in other countries, or I would hear stories and I just would feel bad, but I just never thought that would be something that I would experience until it did become our life. And I was telling Ellen a little bit earlier, I never realized that I would see such darkness, that I would live, that my daughter, my family would live through these things that happen. You can't, even your wildest imagination, you can't come up with how bad and harmful and dark these things are. So I will just tell you the gist of our story because I know that time is limited, but my daughter was 17 and she was taken from Las Vegas. Three gentlemen came up to her and she vaguely remembers being put in a car, and then she woke up the next day in LA. And that kind of was the start of our nightmare. And like Ellen was saying, this isn't something that just happens. Sometimes it is, actually. Sometimes it is that your daughter's at the mall or your son is at the mall and all of a sudden they're gone. But a lot of times this is a lead up. It's lots of little things that happen to these teens. It's usually the teens that feel a little just less about themselves. They're down on themselves. They don't have any friends. They want a little bit of validation. And that was our daughter. She
Amie, to interrupt you, but
yeah,
this is a key point.
Yes.
in this, right? This is a huge
Yes.
key point and a pivot point in your story.
Yes, this is. And so what happened is she was 12 years old. She was just going into the middle school. That's considered our middle school. And she didn't have Facebook at time. The Facebook was really actually a little bit new. And she didn't have a cell phone. Another little girl from her school put up a post on Facebook. And like we said, she didn't have Facebook nor a phone. So we didn't know that this had been up for so long. But the little girl just put a post that said the top 10 sluttiest girls from their school. And our daughter was number 1. And I got word from it from another parent that called me and just said, I just saw that your daughter's name was on and I just thought that you should know. Thank heavens for her. And we obviously went in and took care of the problem, but the damage had been done. And we watched our little girl's kind of soul just kind of die from there. And she struggled from there on out. Couldn't make any friends, didn't have one single girlfriend. And I always tell parents, this is really interesting. And I told my kids, like, you don't know the difference that you can make in somebody else's life. I think it might've been different if she had just had one friend that just had said, you're really a cool cat. Like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about what people are saying about you. You're really cool and beautiful. I think the outcome would have been different. However, it wasn't, and here we are. And so she was starved for attention and validation. And of course, we as her family were like, oh my gosh, we love you so much. We'll be your best friends. And no kid wants their best friends. No teenager wants their best friends to be their parents. Okay. They do. They want other peers to accept them. And so that kind of was the lead up of how she even got to friends. She met some new friends. They said that they wanted to go on an adventure. They were all 21 or older. And that's how we got there. And so that she was taken from Las Vegas, and that started a nightmare for this little girl, for our little girl, and for our family. And she was missing for just over a month. And it's 2% of victims are ever found, and 2% of traffickers are ever prosecuted. And the reason why is because most of these children, these people, they don't have one other human looking for them. This breaks my heart when I talk about this every time. Can you imagine these children that don't have one other human? They're foster kids. They're kids that are just on the street. They don't have one other person looking for them, advocating for them. The only reason why our story turned out different was because our daughter had so much support. She had the support of her family, which is a lot in itself, a lot of people. And then hundreds of friends, the FBI, the police, she just had so many people advocating for her. And so that's the only reason why she was rescued. And so it just breaks my heart. I honestly cannot, my heart breaks thinking about the parents that have missing children still to this day from 5 years, 10 years. Honestly, I don't know how they're alive. I thought I could feel my body shutting down and dying. And my daughter was only missing for a month, but I know that most of you parents can imagine, like, having a missing child.
No, I can't imagine, actually. I can't.
Yeah, there's just no describing the pain that your body goes through. Like, I felt like I legit was coming out of my skin. I just could not even control myself. It was just a horrible, but we went to, I was telling Ellen earlier, we got busy because I am not somebody that I can just sit there and wait. And we had, the police and the FBI involved, but they have 6,000 cases that are working, and it's just, they have to spread their time. And that was just too slow for me. I just could not even fathom just waiting. And so we just got busy, and we turned my house into a work center, and we had our walls covered in a timeline with every single fact that we could do. And And then about
You
3
got
weeks
that from a
into
lot of
our,
social media, right? Where you were looking at her account
yes,
outsider, right?
yes, and
See if
so,
they were any
yes, and that's, yes. And so we were, I mean, we looked at every single thing, every single like. We investigated every single like of people that liked her pictures. And we actually got a lot of clues on there because there was no action on her social media pages. And then we started having a few people just like write comments, and they were odd, bizarre comments. And so that actually led to quite a few leads. But anyways, so about 3 weeks in, we were all becoming, helpless. I had no clue what I was going to do. I remember that I would like will myself. My other daughter, so we have 5 sons and 2 daughters. And our daughter that was trafficked is the older daughter, and our younger daughter was, I remember her telling me, she just actually told me this just recently. She's like, I knew something was wrong when I came into your room, Mom, and you just couldn't even get out of bed, because I always got out of bed. I'm so busy and I'm always going. So she said that it just broke her heart when she came in and she realized something was seriously wrong, because I just couldn't get out of bed. I could not will myself out of bed. But I eventually did and got busy and got to work. But it wrecked our family. I just can't even describe all the intricate things that it does to affect these kids that are taken, and then also the family. But I also learned, I learned so many bad things about this underground life it is like the movies, but it is real. And I was telling Ellen, I feel like that's somewhere, some places that I feel like I can help, because I have seen how this system works. And it's really bad that people want to know that, but it also is really good. People want to know how this system works. How do they keep these girls? How do they make, why don't these people just leave? How does the system work? There really is what's called bottom girls. And this is a woman she feels like that she's the most esteemed girl. She's usually the one that beats all the girls. She's usually the one that dresses all the girls. She's usually the one that takes care of all the kind of like a den mom. There really is someone that is called that and is involved in the system like that. And that just ticks you off. As a woman, like, most women are very nurturing, and they want to take care of people. They want to smooth things over. They want to make spaces comfortable and safe for children. And so when you hear about these den moms that beat these kids, pretty much makes you want to freak out. But so I have seen this part. And then I also have seen, and we're still going through that the second war, and even sometimes the harder war, is when and if you recover these kids, because they are broken. They are,
Can you,
yeah.
I really want to, and I'm sorry if anybody doesn't want to hear the dirty details of this,
Yeah.
but I think
it's so important. I do not feel sorry.
We need to hear the details. This is part of becoming aware. And if you don't want to hear the details, then just stop watching the video. But I think that I at least think it's important for us to hear that. So talk about, you started getting tips, and then the process that you went through and how you found her.
Okay, so what happened is, about 3 weeks in, we were helpless, and we came together as a family. It was pretty amazing to see how my family rallied and my people rallied. Life literally stopped for my entire family. They lived at my house. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how they took time off their jobs, but everybody moved into my house for about, oh, I lost you. Are you there? Okay. Everybody moved into my house for the entire month, and we just went to work. And so we got together in a meeting, and we started talking about ideas, because the Amber Alert is great, and it's such a worthy thing to have. But I couldn't remember one time that I had really clicked into that Amber Alert and looked at the information. Like, honestly, I think I did one time my entire life. And so we as a family thought, this isn't working. That's not working for us. We need something that a huge amount of people are going to see this. And so we decided, we have an acquaintance here in town that's a world-renowned videographer, and he said, get into studio. So we went into the studio, our entire family, our extended family, all of our friends, a lot of the community. And I begged my daughter, I begged for her to just keep fighting, that I was not going to stop, that I was going to find her. And you guys, it's so interesting. I've never been through a trauma like this. So I thought, I'm such a strong person that I thought that I would be over it, like, in a year, that I would be fine. But I start talking about it and it just wrecks my soul because it was so freaking hard. But I just begged my daughter to just fight, that I was not going to stop until I found her. And we just had everybody behind us, just, cheering her on and cheering for her. And so that video went viral, luckily. And I think in the first day, 24 hours, it had like 1 million views. It was shared 500,000 times. And so we obviously had a tip line that was set up to it, and we started getting tips. And I was telling Ellen, the tips that were coming in were just ridiculous. They were like, we saw your daughter, she was dead on the side of the road, or we saw your daughter, we saw that she was, being raped. And they were just horrible things. Like, I just did not even know that there was such mean humans out there that have time to hurt other people, but there are apparently. So anyways, we were getting all these tips, and they were just painful tips. But then we got this one tip from this one man, thank heavens that he called. And he said, I think I've seen this girl, and she can't come out of the apartment. She's never by herself. She can't come out by herself. And she's always with a couple gentlemen, or a couple men when they come out, not gentlemen, men. When they bring her out, and she's taken from car to car. And we didn't really take too much, I don't know. We just had so many bad tips. Luckily, this man kept calling and calling. And over the next 2 or 3 days, he kept calling, and he said, I'm pretty sure that this is the girl. She has a different hair color, but I'm almost sure. And we had been looking in a particular place, and only our family, the FBI, and our nonprofit that we had just got involved with our family, and they were amazing. They were with us every second once we had them help us. But the man that called in the tip line told us where he was, and it was in the city that we had been looking in. So we instantly thought, maybe this is it. I think this is it. So we jumped in our car and started heading down there. We're about 6 hours away. And at this time, our nonprofit that is based in California started heading to the city. And the entire span of time that their organization has been in working, the police have never been willing to help them in this particular place. But for some amazing reason, they helped them in our case. So they called them when they were on their way and said, can we come meet you? And they said, of course. And so they went and met with them, and the police said, yes, we will help you. And so they went in, and one of the first officers that went in, they all had, my daughter's picture on their phone. So they went in and they said, said her name. And she was scared. She didn't know what was happening. She didn't know if they were being arrested for drugs, and that she was going to be given back to them, or what was happening. And so she said, no, I'm not that person. And she said, take me out. So they arrested her. They pretended to arrest her, and they took her out, and they said, that's who you are, huh? And she just lost it and cried and said, I prayed every day, every second of every day, that my mom and my family would find me, and they did. And so she was rescued. And then the process is so then she was taken, and she spent about 10 hours with the FBI. And we were in the next room waiting, and we couldn't see her until she was fully done. And that's just an interesting little tidbit that's kind of interesting. Is so we were warned, the FBI told us, you know, when you see her, there's a possibility that she won't want to come with you. These girls are so brainwashed and so scared and fearful for their life that a lot of times they'll fight back against their family. And so they said, we want you to be aware that she could actually push you away. She could fight you. She could scream at you. She could not want to go with you. There's a number of things that could happen. In my heart, I knew this little girl, she loves her family so much. So in my heart, I was like, I don't think that that's going to be the case. But, you know, I was getting myself ramped up to have her not want to be with us. And anyways, I knew that wasn't the case when the FBI agent came out and she said, your daughter just asked me if she had met her badass mom, her mom that does Spartan races, and that's just a little badass in the gym. And I knew at that second that she was going to be so excited. And when we saw each other, we just flipped. We grabbed each other. We were just, we were rolling around. We were jumping on the couch. We were, and then she saw my husband and the same thing. We were just rolling and dying and just, I've never felt so much happiness in my entire life. Just thankfulness that we found her. So this life is, it breaks a soul, you know? So going back to, you know, lots of people will ask me, why don't these kids just leave? Why don't these girls just leave? And I have to tell all of you parents out there, this is not just girls. The biggest thing that's happening right now is with 12-year-old boys. They are with young boys. They are a sought after commodity right now. So this is not just girls, this is boys. And the sad thing about boys is that we teach in our society that boys have to be a lot stronger, that they shouldn't show so much emotion, that they shouldn't, you know, talk about being sexually offended or offended in any way. You know, it is harder for boys to express and to reach out for help than it is girls. And so I feel like we as parents all need to be aware of that. We need to reach out and help each other, and also just be aware that boys are just as vulnerable as girls. This has no boundaries. Human sex trafficking has no boundaries. They do not care. They do not go to one particular race, one particular culture. There doesn't matter what socioeconomic status you are in. It does not matter. These things happen, and they can happen in a split second online. So all of you parents just need to be aware. Be aware of who your kids are talking to, interacting with. The FBI has told me about numerous stories. You know, one good thing that's come out of this case is that I've become really good friends with a lot of these people involved. And so we are having open discussions and dialogue, and I'm getting advice and information from them so that I can go out and share and help and bring awareness. So this has no boundaries. And I remember the last story that my friend Michelle Guyman was telling me from the FBI is that a little girl was online, and her dream was to become a model. And this is it. It's so interesting how all the stories are very similar. So a lot of times they'll say, we'll help you become a model. We'll help you make a lot of money. They always know if you are struggling in a particular thing. They are very good at what they do and they've honed into their skill. But anyways, they reached out to this little girl and said, we will help you become a model. We have a ticket if you want it. It's on the way, but the offer expires today. And she went and talked to her parents, and they said, well, if this is legit, then we'll go for summer. We'll go for summer break, and we'll take you ourselves. And next thing that they know, she is gone. And somebody had gone to her house and picked her up and taken her, and she had gotten on the plane. And it was a nightmare for her family as well. So
did they find her?
I can't remember if I believe they found her. But it really can just happen that fast. So you just have to be aware that there are bad people out there that will approach your children, and they'll approach you too. It's, you just have to be safe, and you have to be aware of the signs. And I think, you know, Ellen and I were having this discussion a little while ago, that it's super important, I feel like, to kind of hear the really the dirt, the really bad things that are happening, because I think that kind of pierces you to your soul, especially when it has to do with children. And one story, well, I'll just tell all of you this. So the reason why I don't say my daughter's name outright, and it's really hard for me, because I want to say, and it's because I've learned through all our victim, you know, classes and education that we've gone through, that this is their story. And she was a minor when this happened. And she still, to this day, it's almost been 4 years, and she's still even just trying to figure out what the hell this was and what happened, and figure out herself. So we, as her family and as her protectors, are really careful about saying her name or saying too much detail, because that's her story, and she is the one that is allowed to speak about that. But there are a few things that she has given me permission to share, and that I've talked about in you know, in front of people, in meetings and community awareness nights and things like that. But one thing that I didn't even learn, she didn't even tell me this, I learned this in court, and then I asked her if I could share this. She was taken to a gas station one day, and the man went in to the gas station, and he bought a glass 40, a beer, and he came out and he threw it at her head. I don't know why that just broke me. I think it's because, even more than, not more, but it just, for some reason, even though there's like rapes and sexual offenses and all this stuff, for some reason that just broke me. And I think the reason why is that we don't even treat our animals like that. We don't even do that to our dogs, throw heavy objects at them. It legit just broke my soul. But see, these are the things that happen that just break their souls. You know, people say, why don't these kids leave? And it's impossible to leave when every bit of light that you have has been just pushed down. They're just broken. They think the least, they're treated worse than animals. They are verbally abused. They are beaten. They are raped. They have no light, very little light left. They think that they think that they're dirt. And so getting them to leave when you are fearful and you don't have any self-confidence is it's just so impossibly hard. And people say, why aren't more of these people convicted? And that is why. Our daughter was strong enough to go and testify, but that is the scariest thing. And she even refused the second time. She was so scared. She didn't want to see him again. It is, and that's why I think, you know, the criminal justice is so hard too. The criminal side, the court side is also so hard for victims and survivors. But, you know, these people do not want to testify. They do not want to testify. And also it's hard because when you go through a trauma like this, everything becomes one jumbled mix of information. So for victims and survivors, it's extremely hard to break it down, to kind of have a timeline of how things went. Everything becomes mush. And a lot of these victims, even young victims, they are drugged. So the second that these men get them, these bad people get them, they like to drug them up so that they are indebted to them. They owe them money for drugs, they owe them for their clothes, they owe them for their food, they owe them for just a numerous amounts of things. And so they are also stuck.
I'm so
they're stuck. Oh, you're fine.
Okay,
Don't
sorry.
even worry. So they're just indebted. And so they just have, they have a hard time. Not only are they mentally and physically just beaten down, but they also owe money, and they just owe these people so much. So it's almost impossible for them to leave. So that's why they don't leave. Another thing that I'm huge on is we all need to do better at not victim shaming, because it is, these victims and survivors have so much to fight against when they get home. And our daughter, this was not that long ago. This was probably 5 months ago. Our daughter came to us and she told us, "Mom, I feel like the only two things I'm good at anymore are sex and drugs." And when you hear your little girl tell you that, you just want to die. I just told her, "Oh, you are so worth so much. You are so good and talented and so many things. Don't ever think that, but that is just how they feel. It's incredibly hard to get out of that mentality. And think about my daughter. She was just gone for just over a month. Can you imagine those victims that year after year after year, they're offended? It's inimaginable. You can't even imagine it.
The very nice words. So I hate to say, words, that terrible post kind of put your daughter into the tailspin. But then there was a police officer that said something to her that really kind of leans back on. And for those of you that know me, words are powerful, and I post about this all the time. Like, they have the power to heal or to destroy.
Yes. And
the police officers said, because I think
so they really do. I completely, words have so much to do with happiness or unhappiness. And so when our daughter was found, when she was taken to at the very start of this, being with the FBI and everything, a police officer pulled her aside and he just said, "Hey, listen, I want you to know that no matter what you've been forced to do, no matter what you've done, that this does not define who you are." And our daughter still to this day brings that up quite often. It just touched her soul. It impacted her, and it impacted us because we had some experiences with some really douchey policemen, and we also had some experiences with some amazing police officers. And the police officers in California, they saved our family, they saved our daughter, and so we're so thankful for that. But words do have meaning. They have so much power behind them. And so when I say it's so important that we stop, that we do not accept victim shaming. This was a minor child, and she was being the things that she's been called are just, they just break any person's soul. But a minor child that, their brain hasn't even fully developed is just devastating. So, but I think the most important thing, people are always asking me, "Amie, what can we really do?" Like, we hear a lot of things that we can do to help the fight against human trafficking. And I feel like it can be very overwhelming. And I want all of you parents to know also, and all of you humans to know that are on this page, that I don't want you to live in fear. You should not live in fear, because life is meant to be lived and enjoyed. And I don't want you living in fear, but I do want you to be aware for your family and for yourself. And so I think that's the number one thing, is just being aware, learning all the signs, learning how you can help victims if you see them. There are certain things that trigger victims and survivors. You can't just very rarely can you just go up and be like, "Can I help you?" That it's just not how it works. They're usually always being watched. So these things that I feel like everybody needs to know, like, how do you offer your help? That just reminded me, I don't know why this popped in my head, but I'll tell you the story real quick. So our daughter told us that when she every day, she would take a little piece of paper and she would write her name on it, and then she would hide it in places on her body, so that if she was found dead, that they would know who she was, and so they could call her family. Those things for a child are just and for parents and for families, it's just those kind of things. But those are the nitty-gritty things that I feel like everybody needs to know. This is a real thing, coming from a parent that didn't really think that this was a thing, but it is a thing. And that's kind of,
about social media and having access to those accounts, because that is
yes.
important.
Yes. So two things. One thing is that I would make sure that you have all the passwords for all of your kids' social media accounts, because it is imperative. If something were to happen, nobody can break into your child's, even if they're a minor, they can't break into your child's social media accounts unless you get a warrant. And the entire time our daughter was gone, we still couldn't get a warrant. So it is imperative that you get your kids' social media passwords. And I always tell my friends, like, you can put it in a way of like, hey, listen, I'm not going to invade your space. I promise you, I will never get on there without your permission. I just want to have that information available so that if something does go wrong, if you do go missing, that I have that and I can access it and I can see. Because these people are, like I said, these people are not stupid. And we found out the entire time they were on her social media. She was never allowed to be on her social media.
Okay.
But they were on.
That. Okay.
Yes. They were on it. They knew exactly what was happening and where we were looking. And they just knew, they knew. They actually sent us a message. That's another story, but they sent us a message making it seem like it was her and it was not her. So, you need to make sure that that you can get into their social media. Another thing that I always like to tell parents is, and this is for little children, there will never be a time that an adult will come to a little child and ask for help. So if an adult comes to you and says, I need your help finding my puppy, you know that that's not a good situation, because no adult will go to a child for help in any situation. When I'm an adult, I will not go to another child for help. What will I do? I'll go to another adult for help. I'll ask another adult for help. Adults don't go to little children for help. So I think that's a really good tip for all of you parents that have little children. You can tell your children that if anybody rolls up and says, hey, I lost my dog, can you help me find my little girl or my dog? Or that that's probably not a good situation and you should get out of there as fast as you can. But those are good tips. But anyways, back to the things that can really help. Awareness is number one. I've been told from some of my friends from the FBI that reaching out to troubled youth in your community is actually one of the top things that you can do. These are the youth that get into trouble. These are the youth that are in programs. These are the youth that always end up trafficked. One thing that needs to change in our country is that, if you have a runaway teen and you go to the police, your case is almost dead in the water. I'll tell you that right now. Our daughter was not a runaway, did not run away. But if you do go and your child happens to be a runaway, your case is put down pretty far on the totem pole. So that's one thing that we do need to change in this country, because runaways are the first people that are approached by offenders and traffickers and pimps. They utilize that. And so I think that the stat was 1 out of every 3 runaways is approached within 72 hours by a pimp trafficker. So it's a huge number. So that is one thing. But if you can help the youth, a lot of these children that are taken into human sex trafficking are children that are in the foster care. And that goes back to what I was telling you, that sometimes these kids don't have one single other human adult looking for them, not one person. Our case was surprising. And the only reason why our case turned out, and we've been told this from numerous experts, the only reason why we were able to rescue my daughter was because she had a strong family, a strong support system, and that would not stop. But some of these kids don't have one person looking out for them. And that just is so heartbreaking, so heartbreaking. And then one more thing that I think is so helpful for parents is you need to come up with a plan and an open communication with your children. Be open with them. Tell them that you don't want them living in fear, because life is scary when you're living in fear. But you do need to have a game plan, and say, if something were to go wrong, this is our plan. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to try to do. And just be safe and have an open line of communication with your kids. And also I learned that having a safe space, I knew this in my head before. I knew that having a wonderful home, a safe home, was a good thing to have. I knew it in my head, but I didn't know it in my heart until this happened. So I learned that having a space where you can shut out the entire world, and that in your space there is nothing but acceptance and love, is so key. So key. You make your home a fortress, a place where everybody in its walls can feel like they can be completely themselves, that they can talk about anything, that they can do anything that's, you know, obviously who is safe, but that they can feel completely at home and have a safe space. And I know that when we were going through this, the media got involved and it was just a nightmare for our family. And there were so many times I could not wait to get home, run into my house, slam my door, and just love on my babies. And I would say, love on your babies so hard every day. Like, time is not guaranteed. There is nothing worth missing time with your babies, and make your home just a place where love just is so strong that when your kids are at home, they are loved. I think I was a very robotic parent. I was a good parent. I was a good parent. Sorry, are you there, guys?
Yep, I'm here. You're good.
I was a good parent, but I just kind of went through the motions because I was also a working parent. I was busy. So I would, you know, take the kids to school and do all these things that a good parent, good mom should do. And I heard their stories, but I don't think I really heard them. I wasn't present. And you best believe that I am the most present mom now. And I can't, I would rather be doing nothing. There's nothing I'd rather be doing than spending time with my babies and my kids and my family. And I want to know every little detail about them. I want to know every little story. I just make sure that I hear everything and that I am present with them every second that I am with them. And I think, you know, there's a lot of outward things that you can do in the fight, but these are really, really pivotal things that you can do. We will never end. We will, you know, I always say, and I use it myself, end it, the end it movement. And I kind of cringe even when I say that, because we will never end this. This is sexual things have been from the beginning of time. However, there are so many things that we can do to prevent it, and to also help when these things do happen, and decrease the chances of these things happening, and affect the court system, and make the punishment fit these horrible things. They, at this point, they do not fit. They're starting to, but so there's lots of things that we can do to the kind of the inner things and the small little things, the small little actions, like helping the youth, you know, just like my daughter, you know, a few different things, actions of happening in her life probably could have changed this. And so that's our goal. That's our family's goal, is really to just promote awareness, to spread all the little things that we think will make a huge difference. And our daughter, she doesn't speak yet all that often, but in our event last year, we had a huge community awareness event, and the police were involved, and some of the FBI from LA were involved, and surprisingly, and I was speaking, our family was speaking, and our daughter told us that she wasn't going to come, and she ended up showing up. She ended up coming, and she stood up and made a comment. And she said, you know, a lot of times people say, don't snitch, you know, don't be a bitch and snitch, and that kind of thing. And she said, but I just have to say that if somebody hadn't snitched, I wouldn't be here right now. I would still be missing. And so she said the funniest thing. She said, so she's like, if you see somebody that's doing something bad, snitch on that mofo. And we thought we should make that a shirt. But it was amazing to see the community. I was looking around at all the faces, and as the people started recognizing, oh my gosh, that's her that this happened to, they just, the amount of it just touched their soul. And one last thing, there's so much negativity happening in this world right now. I learned that there are so many bad people in this world. Yeah. So many bad people.
Everybody
but on the other side, but on the other side, and the much better side, I learned that there are more good people. Yeah. And the amount of love in our community, and just the amount of love that was shared to us, was, I just can't even express it. There's no words to express it. So in the end, I learned such an important lesson, that love and goodness really always does win. It wins a lot. And so even though there are a lot of bad people, and there are some bad people that do not care about your children, and do not care about their children, and do not care about human dignity, there are other people out there that are willing. And we're all seeing this in this group, that there are many organizations that are willing to fight and do the dirty work. And my advice is, be aware of all these different organizations, because there are a lot of small root organizations that need our help. There are some big organizations that are doing amazing work, and they get a lot of donations, but there are some little organizations in our very own communities that they do all the dirty stuff. They are usually all ex-military, ex-police officers, that they do the things that are the kind of little more underground stuff that they are willing to do.
And right?
Yeah, the things that most people can't do, they don't have the skill set to do. And they're willing to, sometimes break a little bit of the laws to fight for your child, and for our children, our community children. You guys, we are a team. We are a team. We need to come together as a team and watch out for each other, and watch out for each other's families, and watch out for our victims and our survivors. These survivors, they need love. They need acceptance. They are fighting a battle that you cannot even imagine.
Go ahead. We can still hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you. Well, I think we lost you. We did lose her this time. Gosh, guys, I hope we did not lose Amie. I'm going to tell you that she does have an organization. It's an event. It's called Save the Next Girl Boy, where she does rowing in her, and I think it's whatever gym that she has. And they have about 600 people out that do rowing. So if you have a local gym, we did lose Amie. Gosh, I hate we can't finish this up. But if you have a local gym, you can work with her organization. You can coordinate these 600 people, or however many people you can get into your space. You give a donation to her group, and then whatever local group in your community, you can make a donation directly to them. So that is it for today. We're going to try to do more of these interviews. I would like to make it a winning Wednesday, success stories of children. If not, it'll be an education, again, awareness, and we just appreciate each of you. I'm going to ask Amie to put the link to her video where she was pleading to her child to come home and be safe and all that. I'll ask her to put it in the comments field for you guys so you can see that. But I would also like to ask each of you that took the time to watch this to make a comment and show your support for Amie and what her family went through. So we just appreciate all of you. Sorry about that. It's my child calling. We just appreciate all of you, and thank you so much for being here with us today. Bye.